Leadership, which is an important topic. One of the things that, one of the topics obviously that have to come up pretty quickly would be the role of conflict.
Yes, yes.
And many times, depending on personality and experience, many leaders want to shy away from that particular reality. And yet, in many ways, it not only defines leadership, it also, in my opinion, really can help shape community, how you deal with conflict. Do you agree?
Absolutely. A mark of a good leader is one who hunts for conflict.
Yeah, I see that, and that's a different.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Conflict is often looked at as negative,
Right.
but actually conflict can be a positive, and it can actually work for your advantage.
That's right.
Conflict is an opportunity to grow.
Yes.
Because you're educating yourself about other views and
Right.
other perspectives and how people react, and you can build upon that. So
That's
it's an
right.
opportunity to build and to grow whenever conflict arises.
I like that. That's a very different understanding of conflict. When so often in leadership, when conflict is on the horizon or someone has a sense that there's going to be a conflict, sometimes the tendency is either to ignore that reality
Yes.
or to move away from it.
Yes.
What you're telling us is that it's important to move into it.
Yes.
Don't
Yes.
move away from it.
Yes, exactly. A leader should be a hunter, for conflict.
Right.
And as you mentioned, avoidance. I talk about the 3 C's, which are there's 3 ways that you can deal with conflict.
Right.
You can collaborate.
Mm-hmm.
You can compromise and negotiate.
Right.
You can compete or fight. Compete and fight.
Right.
The other 2 that go along with those 3 is denial
Yes.
and avoidance.
Right.
And then after denial and avoidance, there is the smoothing over concept. So that's actually 5.
Right.
Those last 2 are lose-lose
Yes.
situations.
Yes.
Denial and avoidance and smoothing over the problem.
Right.
Competing and fighting is the idea that the strongest person is going to win in this
Yes.
conflict. The one who has the most resources
Right.
is going to be the one who's going to win in
Right.
that situation. So it seems like it's a win, but you have created an enemy.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And so in order to rise to the next level, to be successful, you
Yes.
need to find ways to have fewer enemies
Right.
and more friends.
That's right.
Because you never know when you're going to have to cross that bridge again.
I like that metaphor.
Yes,
That you want to maintain the bridge.
yes,
And so often we think that conflict is you have to tear that bridge down.
yes,
Or the truth of the matter is, if we don't handle conflict appropriately,
yes.
what happens is you blow the bridge up,
There you go, yes.
so that there's no relationship, no hope of maintaining a friendship or even a partnership down the line after some conflict. So I think that bridge, the idea of having that bridge and maintaining that, is a good way of looking at conflict.
Oh yes, oh yes. There's nothing that's more valuable than relationships.
That's right.
You see, the relationship is more important than winning the argument
Right.
or maintaining your position.
And it's hard to remember that
Yes.
when you're in the middle of a conflict,
That's
isn't it?
exactly. When you get to the point where you can separate
Right.
the problem from the person
Yes.
and recognize that this problem that you're facing or the wrong that you feel like has come to you
Yes.
or to your organization, that defines everything that that person is
Right.
or that that group of people are. There's good and bad in all people.
That's right.
So when you're in the conflict, you should focus on the good aspects of the person rather than the negative aspects.
I like that.
I have this volume here. It's called The Long Walk to Freedom
Yes.
by Nelson Mandela.
Mandela.
And he said that many of those in his inner circle were upset with him because he talked to the apartheid government.
Right.
And they felt that that's a sign of weakness.
Right.
But he said that's actually a sign of strength. If you can be the first person
Yes.
to address the conflict, or to be the first person to say, call up and say, I'm willing to talk.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
One of the things that he points out when it comes to conflict is communication,
Right.
and also leaning into in talking up the other person's good qualities.
Right.
So if Mandela has something good to say
Yes.
about F.W. de Klerk during that particular time, he talked about how the fact that he understood that was a problem. He was willing to talk. He was able he was willing to speak with us on equal terms. He
Right.
began to talk about all the good things. There's
Right.
plenty of bad things
Right.
to talk about, but that wasn't going to help the negotiation process.
That's right.
So he affirmed the opposition,
Right.
the good qualities.
Yes.
And that is what helped him to be able to get to the point where they could resolve the conflict.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I think that's a wonderful example because in many ways conflict demands that we have to transcend the idea that somehow you have to retaliate,
Yes.
or that if you're so entrenched to get your way or your thought promoted,
Yes.
then in many ways what we're doing is we're shutting down. And instead of a bridge, there's a wall
Yes.
that we're building.
Yes. Yes.
So that we no longer even can hear one another as we talk.
Yes.
We may be talking at each other or about each other, but we're not really talking with each other. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. And that's one of the aspects of conflict management is being an active listener.
Yes.
You see, the difference between being a listener
Right.
and being an active listener.
Yes.
See, when you're just listening, you're just hearing words,
Right.
but you're waiting to do what? To respond, to
Right.
react.
Right.
But an active listener is someone who's trying to get inside the person's mind and try to understand where they're coming from.
Yes.
Not to just listen to their words, but to listen to their heart as well, what
Right.
it is they're trying to get across. Being observant, looking at their body language, and sometimes when you talk about being an active listener, you have to come to the point where you begin to say, do I understand you to mean thus and so?
Right.
Did I hear you correctly when you said thus and so? Did you mean this when you said that?
Right.
Do I understand you correctly?
Yes.
That's a part of active listening.
And that's so important. I agree. Stephen Covey said something about seek first to understand, then be understood.
Yes, yes.
But in conflict, I find myself, and I think others do too, that you want to rush in. You want to make sure that someone understands the rightness of your position
Yes.
or of your idea or of your thought. When in reality, you're not serving anyone but yourself in that.
Yes, yes.
And leadership demands that we respect and honor and care for the other enough that we would want to hear and understand what they're saying.
Yes, yes. There's two things you mentioned there. The one is when you mentioned about having a position.
Yes.
And the other was the listening aspect. And I just want to mention a couple of things about that. The listening aspect also involves what a person is not saying.
Yes. That's right.
In other
That's
words,
important.
a person can say, I agree,
Yes.
but look at their body language.
Right.
Listen to what they're not saying.
Yes.
One of the ways, if you're a leader, you're working with people, and you bring up a person in a conversation, and you're saying good things about that person,
Right.
and they're standing there, and that person is not agreeing with you and saying good things about that person as well, there may be a problem there.
Yes.
I'm not saying that it is,
Right.
but it could be a sign of a problem. Listening to what people are not saying, that's a part of being an active listener.
That's really good.
Yes. And also, when you talk about having a position,
Yes.
you see, some people hold on to a position
Right.
because they want to be able to win the argument.
That's right.
But do you want to solve the problem, or do you want to win the argument?
That is
Yes,
profound.
yes.
And that's right. That's what every
Yes.
leader has to ask that question, right?
Yeah. Solving. You see, sometimes you can win the argument, But the objective that you wanted is defeated by the fact that you won the argument.
Exactly. I had a friend
And
that
so-
said you can win the battle and lose the war,
Yes, indeed.
and that can happen in conflict.
Yes, indeed. So the question is, what are your interests?
Yes.
So let's say you're an educator, and there's one group in another department, they want this curriculum.
Right.
Another group wants this particular curriculum.
Right.
So one is saying, I'm right. The other said, no, I'm right. And so now we're debating about who's right.
That's it.
But what is the interest? And what can I find, what curriculum can we find that can meet both needs?
Yes. That's when
Because both of those are going to come out on top in the end.
That's right. Right.
Talk about the four who's that gets in the way of conflict management, and that is who is wrong,
Mm.
who's to blame,
Right.
who said it,
Right.
and who did it.
That's
And
good.
so the objective in the conflict is to find out who's to blame.
Right.
So the one says, I'm not to blame, they're to blame.
Right.
I didn't say it, he said it.
Right.
I didn't do it, they did it.
Right.
And so the leader is going around and they're trying to find out who's to blame, who said it, and who did it.
Right.
But what matters at this point is not who said it and who did it, who's to blame, who's not to blame, but what's the problem,
Right.
and how can we together resolve this conflict and at the same time preserve our relationships.
That's very good. I agree. So in family systems, often it's talked about the identified patient.
Yes.
That if you look at an organization as a family, as a system, that what often happens in conflict or when there's a problem is that someone becomes the identified patient. They are not in reality the problem, but it's easier to pin the problem on someone
Yes.
and make them the issue.
Yes.
And what happens in conflict is we not only make someone the issue,
Yes.
we sometimes make them the enemy.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
And that can be very, very hurtful in conflict management. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you about this, and this will be kind of a part one.
Yes.
We'll pick up with a part two later and talking about leadership and conflict management, but some great insights, and I appreciate you sharing with